All right, we're live. As I was just sharing with Lee, my computer died right before this session. So welcome everybody to our LinkedIn Live about why your C-suite hates to be on video and what to do about it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Thank you for your patience. Lee, do you want to kind of give us an introduction, who you are, for those who may not know who you are?
Absolutely. I am Lee Densmer, and I'm a content marketer with eons of experience in B2B and SaaS and services companies building content programs, which necessarily these days include video. So I am excited to join Justin to talk to you all about how to make that happen, because it's seemingly impossible in some organizations. So
it can be. It can feel. Yeah. There's folks that have experienced the opposite, which it's fine. You know, I've invited some people to this event, and they're like, I don't have that problem, but I know a lot of us do. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't have an audience of, you know, of folks, 50 or some folks interested in this event. And I know from personal experience running my own remote video agency that is a challenge. I talk to so many marketers that are in-house or third party, you know, contractors. And they're like, yeah, my client needs to do video. They got to get on video. And then it's crickets from the client, because there's always some kind of block. It's a time thing. Right. Or honestly, it's not a time thing, but it's actually below the surface. It's like a fear thing. So that's what we're going to talk about today, why your C-suite hates being on video and what to do about it. So if you're here, welcome. And if you don't mind letting me know in the comments if you're an in-house or contractor as a marketer, and what your biggest challenge is with getting your leaders on video. So let's dive in. Lee, we're going to talk about the first two things here. The two, what I call the two silent killers.
The silent killers,
yeah. Thought leadership video. So I kind of hinted at them earlier. And there are things we're all familiar with once you're aware of them. But the first one, of course, is fear, and the second one is friction. You want to speak to Lee just briefly about, you know, like what you've seen with, you know, the people you've talked to, the companies you've talked to about those two things, either one of them.
You bet. In fact, I'm going to share a story. So I was working with a $500 million B2B, and they were very clear that they wanted to do more video, and they wanted to get their thought leaders on video, and they wanted to start with their chief of growth. And he was all in, and it came time to schedule the call. It came time to record, and just, it never happened. And after having a candid conversation with him, he's like, I don't know what to say. I hate being on video, and I'm so freaking busy. I just can't get it done. And those are the things I hear over and over again. I don't know what to say. I don't have time. And I hate being on video. So, you know, as a marketer, how do I get past that? That seems like I'm dead in the water, right? But Justin has developed a methodology to help get people past that actually works. So, Justin, I think that's your fear of being cringy or looking dorky or whatever. Fear of the bad hair day, right? And the friction.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge it can feel cringy, can feel difficult. That's the fear one. Once video has two layers of objections, you just hit on them. It's like, I don't have time, but it's really about, I don't want to be cringy, or I don't, you know, there's this internal middle schooler, I say, we all have inside of it that doesn't want to be judged. And it comes out when we think about doing video. I've talked to people who've been on stages, like in front of hundreds and thousands of people, and they're still afraid to do video. And there's something about it that just feels foreign and unnatural and hard for a lot of people.
Well, and right? You post that video and you feel like it is permanent. There's a record of your cringiness online forever.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's different than a stage where you may just be captured in that moment, and then, you know, at least it was in the past, but now it does. That's a good point, Lee. You know, there's a lot of permanence to video content. So yeah, the thing that we've when you have the cringe factor, or the it's the most difficult one to get around, because you can't make somebody want to be on video, but you can work with them on making it easier. And, you know, while the fear thing is not quite solvable, I don't want to make it sound like you can solve the fear somebody has. You can make it as easy as possible to get into video content. So there's two main ways that I've seen to help get these busy leaders on video. And it really comes down to like removing as much friction as possible. And often that can get rid of the fear too, because you realize that it's just not as big of a deal as you thought it would be. So the friction part is really like getting them scheduled, or, you know, the technology behind the recording and things like that. So the way we get around that with our clients, and the way we've seen, and the way I talk about it, is if you can get 15 minutes, just 15 minutes, you start simple. Hey, we need 15 minutes of your time. We're just gonna use a phone. We're just gonna have a conversation. That's the key. We're just gonna have a conversation about this. It's not gonna be a presentation. There's no notes to like read off. There's no script, you know, and ideally you can, as a marketer, in-house or otherwise, you can send them topics ahead of time for them to think about, but you're not writing a script. And this is what we do with our clients, but this is also what I tell anybody they can do to remove as much of the friction as possible.
Yeah, you know, another thing, Justin, is I think that there's a sense that you need thought leaders to be on video to humanize your brand, but I think it's also important to help people understand what's in it for them, and on two levels. What's in it for you personally in building your brand or establishing credibility, and what's in it for the company if you post online, your videos online. Yeah, exactly. And those are concrete. You know, video is being consumed more than any other type of content format. It's best for people on the go. It works for humanizing your brand. So there are all these reasons to do video that are way beyond just the hunch, right? Like, hey, we need to be on video. That's really not concrete enough. So if you connect the effort to outcomes, I think it will be easier for them to get on video. And then the more they do it, like once you get them online to do it once, the second, third, and fourth time are way easier. Yeah. That's certainly true for myself too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So if you position this as like a pilot versus an ongoing commitment, we're just going to try 15 minutes, 30 minutes, you know, whatever. And you say, we're going to make it as, and you do the prep, right? You get the space. If you're in-house and you're there in the same space, you get the space ready. They just have to show up and answer a few questions. You get them in the conversation mode. You don't draw attention to the record button. That's a big no-no in video. You just don't draw attention. You just move seamlessly from small talk, starting with small talk, into the questions you're going to ask. And then, you know, you say, thanks for being here. And they're going to, sometimes they'll be surprised, like, oh, that was it. Yep, that was it. We're done. If you move from that and then you, I mean, I'm a big fan of just doing the thing without asking permission. You cut it up and then you publish it and you show them the results in terms of the engagement, because you're going to see higher engagement typically. If it's a well-known founder or C-suite, you get higher engagement, and you do all the work on the back end. You write the post that goes with the video and all that. You're going to see them be pleasantly surprised at the results, versus this objection that, you know, it's going to be the end of the world, which, you know, obviously it's not. And obviously they know it's not, but we're not dealing with a rational mind at that point. We all know that that's not how humans work. We make 95% of our decisions with the subconscious mind, which is often the child brain. So yeah, some outcomes you can speak to your point, Lee. I mean, I got a list here. We can go down the list. There's no lack of outcomes to speak to. You can cite the fact that video gets 5 to 7 times more engagement on LinkedIn than image or text posts, according to B2W.TV. Now, obviously, that's going to be very subjective. It's going to depend on the type of content, how short it is, how what's the word? How pointed it is, how well you do with your editing, how quickly they got to the point. You can't just say video equals this, but you can point to certain trends in performance improvement. And one of those is more engagement. You can point to things like literal, this is one I talk about, because I talk about human psychology a lot, because that's the space I'm dealing with in terms of trust and things. And there's a lot of theories, actually. And one of them is this study by Horton and Wall in 1956, that if you have a medium, if you receive information in audio and text and visual, so there's multiple things happening in your brain, you're just going to remember it more. And if your content is struggling to be remembered, it's hard to know exactly what that means in your individual businesses. But if you suspect, we have a problem with our content not sticking, video is the answer. Because I can't tell you how many times people mention my video content. I do a lot of different kinds of content on LinkedIn. But people reference my videos all the time, and I've talked to other people about this, and that they get the same thing. It's just a funny thing how video stands out. Nothing the other stuff. So there's a couple different outcomes to that.
Right. And one other thing that came to mind, Justin, is that people fret about their hair, their clothes, and their background. But unless you're wearing lawn mowing clothes, which granted, people in IT definitely do, it's not a thing. Like, people don't care if you're not wearing a suit, or if you have, I have a bookshelf and some fallish decor in the background.
Yeah.
It's just not a thing. So you need to kind of put people at ease that they don't need, a gorgeous haircut and a suit.
Yeah.
We're not talking about high polish, massively produced videos.
No, that's a really good point. When you think about video, and especially with older generations who maybe aren't as online as, millennial, my generation, or, and Gen Z, this is something, that's a really good point, Lee, because that's something I've seen a lot, where as soon as you show them what others are doing, they go, oh, that's what we're talking about. It's not this polished, gem of a production. And one of the theories I have about that, I've talked about, is that, I think a lot of the older generations grew up with polished video because it's TV productions, it's the Johnny Carson with the long microphone, depending on how old you are. And that's their experience with video. But Gen Z and even millennials, we know, like, look at me right now. My computer died. I had to, for those who are joining late, I had to join on my phone. I'm on my in-laws. There's camo in the background. There's personal memorabilia. It's like, this is about the content. This is about the value people get. It's not about the production value. Can production value help you? Yes, in very specific circumstances, but that's not what we're talking about here with this type of content.
Right. I was actually totally stressed out for you. It was like 1 minute before and you weren't on camera, and like I felt physical panic for you, but you're cool. You're like, I'm totally a millennial. It's good.
Oh my gosh. Well, this is a good thing. I brought my phone, and I have my phone on my phone stand. And so I had my backup. I was planning to record separately. This is a little, for you marketers out there, you're like, how do we turn this crappy content into good content? Well, if you have people doing webinars, that is typically, crappy video, have them record separately on a phone stand, which is the best practice I follow. So that's just a little fun aside. That was my purpose for this phone, but I was like, you know what? Computer's dying. I guess we're using the phone as the primary device, going vertical instead of landscape. So there's this stat I came across. I want to wrap up the ROI question, Lee, because ROI is very, very, to be fair, ROI is very, very spongy, very soft. There's a hard ROI and the soft ROI. But there are bigger companies than mine that have done these studies. One of them is Brightcove. And I came across this one in doing research for today that was just yesterday. And it was this one. It was the fact that Brightcove found out 7 out of 10 executives who are decision makers looking to make a purchase in B2B, 7 out of 10 of them watched at least 5 videos in the previous 3 months before making that buying decision. 7 videos from the potential sellers. Right. So that's a mix of, screen walkthroughs, screen shares, thought leadership content, all of the above. So you can't ignore the impact that video has, not just to show how you solve a problem with like a walkthrough of a dashboard, but also, and more importantly, I would argue, to build a connection with a person at that company. Because you and I know nobody buys a $50,000 service or $100 million contract without talking or getting to know somebody at that company in B2B, right?
You call it the digital handshake. So it establishes that connection with people that's more than just the anonymous brand. It's like meeting somebody in a room, getting to know them a little bit and getting comfort with that person. So Justin, I'm curious. So there's two components to this. One is actually getting your leader on a call and the things that you do to make them comfortable and to record. So let's talk about that. And then second, let's talk about some of the production stuff you do that make it ready to post.
Yeah.
So, you add an intro, you add an outro, you add some images. So it's not like you're just taking a clip off your iPhone. And there's more to it. So let's first talk about the process of getting your person on video and making the most of your time together.
Yeah. So the process, there's a lot of different techniques for getting people on video. The way we do it and the way I always recommend is the content buddy system. It's this idea where if you're an in-house marketer, you get 15 minutes of your CEOs, your founder, your C-suite's time. Say, hey, can I get 15 minutes next week to record a few of your thoughts on this topic? And here's the topics. So you do the work. You think of the topics. You give them to them ahead of time. So there's no nervousness. So like, what are we going to talk about? It doesn't feel like a job interview. It feels more like, like, oh, I know what I'm going to be talking about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And then, like I said earlier, you focus on the conversational aspect of producing video. So you're recording the video either in the room with them if you're in-house, or remotely. You're hitting record without without drawing attention to that. And by the way, if you're doing this remotely, I do recommend tools like we use Riverside, $25 a month, and you get 4K video recordings. You want to use their phone. Now, this is something a lot of people forget, and I'm always teaching, and it surprises me how often I have to teach this, but it kind of makes sense. We think webcams are a suitable form of video content, and they can be in a pinch. But if you want something that stands the test of time in terms of looking decent and the lighting is okay, you want to use your phone, because your phone, especially if you use a platform like Riverside, it will record to the highest resolution quality of your phone. And on a selfie camera like the one I'm using right now, that's 4K, believe it or not. A lot of people are so surprised to find out. If your phone is any less than 3 years old, odds are it has a 4K selfie camera. So you just have them doing.
You have clipped on top of your computer.
Yeah, or you get an Insta360 like my webcam here, which I think I had you buy one. Oh, wow, you bought one, right?
I did.
Yeah, so you get a really nice webcam. Now, I will say some webcams which promote themselves as 4K are not actually 4K, or they don't actually allow you to record in 4K once you enter Riverside because of stability issues. So that's a little bit of a nuance there. The best two ways to record your video content and in 4K. So that, and by the way, 4K matters. So you can punch in, you can zoom in, you can zoom out. You can do a lot more with the footage rather than, oh, now we're stuck with 720p here, and now we can't really do much with it. 4K gives you more editing capabilities. So the two tools for that are a phone, again, because we talked about how that gives you 4K if it's under 3 years old or so, or an Insta360. And I'm pointing over here because I have my Insta360 on my computer, which I'm not using because my computer died. But that also can record in 4K, and it's very stable in platforms like Riverside.
Yeah. So you got a good setup. It's not anything fancy or expensive. It's what you already got. You've got a clean background. You get your laundry basket out of the way.
Yeah.
Your dog's okay. You put on a decent shirt that's not, well, I mean, a Rolling Stones t-shirt, thumbs up, right? For your audience.
It depends on your audience. If you're talking to if your audience if they like Rolling Stones because you've surveyed them, by all means.
Otherwise, just a nice shirt, right? Buttons optional.
Yeah,
but it's not a big deal. And then a casual conversation. Now, Justin, I would say that it is important to make sure that the interviewer, you are not talking and saying while the other person is talking, because you're going to clip videos of that other person. It is about the interviewee. So yes, it is a conversation, but in regular conversations, people play tennis. They talk back and forth and they talk over each other. So when I'm interviewing somebody, I'm very mindful that I don't want my voice in his clips. So I ask a question and then I literally shut my mouth until they are finished. And then I'll ask a clip. But I am seeking to facilitate a conversation that is clippable.
That's a really good point. Now, I will say there's an addition to that. That's true. And you definitely learn that skill if you've ever done video in person. If you do video in person, I had to learn this when we were doing live, not live recordings, but like in-person sessions, driving out, and then my videographer would shoot, I would ask questions. You had to just nod your head. And if you ever look at like 60-minute interviews, they do the same thing, right? If they cut to the interviewer, they're just nodding their head. They're not adding words because they know their voice can be picked up by the mic of the person, and then it kind of can ruin the clip. Now, the nice thing about Riverside and that happens on Zoom because Zoom is like all one recording. But the nice thing about Riverside and other platforms, for example, StreamYard, which I'm using right now for this, it creates 2 different tracks. And so you can actually have a conversation and you can go, oh, interesting. You go, wow, you can laugh. And I do it all the time. It takes the pressure off. It makes it more conversational because the recording is going to have 2 different tracks, and no matter what I say, they're going to be just fine. So that's a nice benefit of using a remote platform like Riverside that's designed for something like that.
Absolutely. And I think that that's something that people don't know, but that can, make or break your video if you've got, the interviewer nodding or coughing or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Call. So then, Justin, you get this hour of video after your conversation with your thought leader or C-suite executive. What do you do with it? I think so many people they get stuck there. Hard stop.
Yeah. There's 2 different approaches to this. So if you can push, if you're an in-house or contract marketer and you're working with the C-suite, so there's 2 approaches. The first is you do some work in the actual session. And this is what we do with our clients. It's not just a podcast recording, because some people might go, why don't we just do a podcast, and just have, because what happens in a podcast is there's a lot of build up to a point, and then the point is made, and there's a bunch of other stuff that happens after the point that may or may not add to the point. It might just kind of get distracted. And so what happens when you turn that into clips, it creates these non-contextual pieces of information. You're like, what, and if you've ever seen a podcast clip when you're scrolling, you're like, what are they even talking about? That can happen. That can happen if you do it through the traditional way. So if you want a tip, and this is something we do here at Dialogue, our producer does this, is when your CEO answers a question, and this is a skill you have to learn. This isn't something I can just say, go, here's the exact way to do it. But it's something we do, and it's something that, I think a lot of people can do with just a little bit of thinking ahead. When they answer the question, then ask them to say an introduction to the question. So, for example, Lee, you say, I've been in content marketing for so many years, and this is the moment I found out that I was meant to be a content marketer. You would say, hey, Lee, can you say this part just verbatim? Can you say, this is the moment I discovered I was meant to be a content marketer? So you're basically you're feeding them the hook that then in editing, you can go grab that after they've talked about it and you put it on the front. And that is really, really critical to creating short video clips, because no one wants to wait to get to the point. I call it the on-ramping thing we do in talking, right? We on-ramp to the point, but if you remove the on-ramp and you replace it with a really good video hook, that's going to help you improve the performance of your content. But that takes a little bit of know-how in the session to get around that. Let's say you didn't do that, and this is the vast majority of people. The second way you get around that is you take the most interesting part of what they said, the story moment. Think about a movie. Sometimes you start with the most exciting. These directors will start with the exciting action part, and there's like this moment where the bad guy's standing over the hero with the gun, and you're say goodbye, and then you cut. Where do you cut to? You cut back to the beginning. So it's a little bit of foreshadowing. Movies do it, episodes do it. We can do that in content marketing as well, where you cut to the most important part first, and then you go back. You start with the most important part first, and you go back to the beginning to build up to that point again.
So what you're saying, Justin, is that there is skill on both sides. There's skill on the part of the interviewer, the facilitator, and there's skill on the part of the thought leader. The thought leader needs to show up with his or her thoughts. But if you want to produce this, it's important to recognize that there's some skill involved in your part in facilitating a good conversation of clippable pieces.
Yeah,
so
there's a couple different,
Yeah, so you have 2 tips that popped up for me. Is one, prepping the person with prompts. You're not scripting, but you're prepping them with prompts. Like, these are the things that we agreed you could talk about. And then finding a way to get them to speak to the context or the hook, as you said, in each of their answers, so you get a clippable moment.
Yeah. And to be fair, those are kind of advanced techniques that the interviewer, I wouldn't expect if you're not optimizing for video. Right. Let's say you're doing thought leader video content, but it's not for video. It's just a lot of content marketers, we interview people for the sake of getting written content, like transcript that we can use written content for. The good news is you don't have to be a pro at like those tips, the interviewing skills. You can just use a technique I talked about, where any good editor worth their salt. AI doesn't know how to do this, by the way. You do need a human editor to go find the best part and put it at the front and then cut to the main part.
You're talking about a clip that shares context and then something else like an image or something, and then the clippable piece that has the insight. So you're looking for a hook within the transcript or within the recording that you can use in the first part of any produced clip.
Yeah,
and just
exactly.
in your work, you put in an intro, you put in some images, you lay in the images that you've agreed upon, the kinds of, could be video, could be static images. And then there's an outro. So the end result is produced.
Yeah, it's designed to be produced, semi-produced, you could argue, and everyone has their different idea of what produced means. But you know, we find my favorite way that we're working with our clients now on talking head videos. Talking head videos can kind of get old after a while. But the way, there's different ways to make it exciting. And one of our favorite ways, for example, to your point about production, is we will have our clients say the hook. Now, this is advanced stuff, guys. I don't expect anybody to do this. But we'll have them say, you know, the start of the story, so the most important part, and then we'll cut to this pre-made introduction, or it's not pre-made, it's actually made in post. But like, for example, we have a client named Maureen Rifus, and she is a former VP, and now she's a career coach for executives and folks, and she leads a boutique B2B firm helping folks with career pivots. And she does a series called "That's Not How You Do a Layoff." So what we do is we have her say the hook, right? Because we're coaching her a lot in the call and the recording. And then we, in post-production, we cut to "That's not how you do a layoff." It's a little animated intro. And then we cut to the rest of her talking about it. And that's been a fun way we've turned talking head videos into some more of a thought out, like almost like a newscast, you know, where you have the intro and then you have the do-do-doom, do-do-doom, and then you get back into the story. It's kind of a cool format. But we do intro. You can do outros as well. You can, if you have an editor or someone on your team that's good with editing, you can have a little call to action outro with like, "Buy my book." We've done that for folks. A little bit of music, just 5 seconds or less. This is nothing crazy. By the way, don't put your logo at the front of video. Some executives who haven't seen a lot of video content on social, they might think, well, let's put the logo on the front. This is not the place for that. You got to dive right into the content, or no one's going to watch.
Yeah, your point is not to sell. Your point is not to hit somebody over the head with your company. The point is to establish a human connection with your viewers. Right. And the sale, the lead generation, all that is peripheral. You are humanizing your brand first and doing that nice to meet you handshake.
That's right.
Just, I am mindful of time. We had a lot to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, I want to hear them. Put them in the comments. We have a small group today, so I don't expect too much. But Lee, what is so until if we get any comments, happy to answer those for you here right now. But if you guys, we can also answer them after too, if you're like, oh, what about this? Lee, and anything that's still on your mind as we want to wrap this up?
I just encourage people to try it and do what you can to put your speaker, your leader at ease. Tell them what's in it for them. And I would say, if you're seeking to do more video in your organization, find the 1 or 2 people who are willing and just get started. Yeah.
Find somebody that's willing and just get started. It may not be your C-suite. You might have to go one layer below that with permission. It might have to be you, depending on the kind of culture you work in. That's a really good tip. But if you start with people on video, I mean, you get started is the biggest thing. Keeping going, obviously, is a different matter. But there are ways to get started in a way that doesn't have to be this huge production. If you remember that the point of video isn't to impress people, it's to connect with people.
Not to sell, not to impress, right? Connect, maybe teach something, maybe share an insight, maybe, share part of the process or something interesting and human.
Something interesting and insight. Stories, by the way, really good topic for video. If you want to tell a good story, people will stick around. We did this test recently with a client. We ran some ads for them, all video-based ads. And their longest video was the best performing. It was almost 3-minute video. And you would think that breaks all the rules of social media video. Yes, it does. Except for this. It was interesting because it was a story, and it was a good story. It was a time, that he talked about this before and after in this mindset shift. So
I think you can end on that. If you're telling a story and you got a Rolling Stones shirt on, aces, right?
There you go. Yeah, you're going to get all the views. And B2B doesn't take much to get a lot of views in B2B. And as long as you come across genuine, and most people do once you get them in a genuine conversation. If you get out of presentation mode, get into conversation mode. People, I have not yet met one client that couldn't describe the genius in their brain in a call once I got them into conversation mode instead of presentation mode.
Yeah, love that. Okay.
So I think that wraps up where we're at here. Thanks everybody for being here. There's the replay. Obviously, you can watch it. I don't know how soon after LinkedIn Live makes it available. It might be instantly. If you do have questions, guys, I will be monitoring the comments. I know Lee will too. For a question for Lee. So you can always add some stuff after. Happy to answer those for you. Happy to go into the details, get nitty gritty. I'm a big fan of like literally how do you make this stuff work? What, you know, how do you create the habit? How do you get over this issue? We've seen how to do that in our own agency. That's the problem we've solved, is like, how do you close the gap execution wise between desire and action to get on video? And so I'm a big fan of this conversation and making sure the right people are on video, sharing their story.
That's right. Okay. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.